This is the story of the one. As head of maintenance at a concert hall, he knows the show must always go on. That's why he works behind the scenes, ensuring every light is working, the HVAC is humming, and his facility shines. With Grainger's supplies and solutions for every challenge he faces, plus 24/7 customer support, his venue never misses a beat. Call quickgrainger.com or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
If you're looking for more horror outside of the mainstream, look no further than Unsung Horrors, a podcast about underseen horror movies. I'm Lance.
And I'm Erica. Every other week, we'll cover a horror movie with fewer than 1,000 views on Letterboxd. We'll even give you double feature recommendations to pair with the movies we discuss.
From gothic to shot on video, from slashers to comedies, from giallo to J-horror, we'll cover all the subgenres. So join us as we unearth these hidden gems of horror.
Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, all at Unsung Horrors, available wherever you listen to podcasts. And part of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
Have you ever wanted to dive deeper into the horror movies you love? Beyond the Blood is a horror podcast for fans who want more than just surface-level screams. We do deep dives into the movies that shaped us, digging into director commentaries, behind-the-scenes stories, deleted scenes, and the special features that most people skip. Each episode is a love letter to the genre. We break down how these films were made, the creative risks that paid off or didn't, and the lasting impact they've had on the genre as a whole. From 70s slashers to modern nightmares, we celebrate the craft, chaos, and characters that keep us coming back. If you're the kind of fan who rewatches movies with the commentary on, or you simply grew up in the video store horror aisle, the Beyond the Blood podcast was made for you. New episodes every single week. Subscribe, and let's dig deep. Welcome to the Beyond the Blood podcast.
Welcome to the Shabby Detective, yet another Columbo podcast. I'm your host, Mike White. Joining me, of course, is Mr. Chris Dashew.
You are the Duke. Oh, wait. Wrong thing. Right person. Wrong thing.
We are here to talk about one of my most favorite episodes of Columbo. Season 3, Episode 2, Any Old Port in a Storm, directed by Leo Penn, the man who gave us Chris, Michael, and Sean Penn, but please don't hold that against him. Written by Stanley Ralph Ross, based on a story by Larry Cohen, who we'll hopefully hear from later on in the show. I had the pleasure of talking with Mr. Cohen back when he was still alive about this episode because, as I said, it's my favorite. It came out October 7th, 1973. It is one of those 91-minute episodes, and maybe it drags, but I don't care because I get to see Donald Pleasence square off against Peter Falk. The way that these two guys go at it with each other, it is genius. So, Chris, did you hate this episode?
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, of course I didn't hate this episode. The joke last time we recorded was we kept talking about this episode, sort of like we would be like, oh, and then in the next episode, and it's like, okay, well, now we're finally here. The last time we recorded when we talked about the first episode of the third season, I couldn't help but keep thinking to myself, man, I can't wait to talk about the episode that I watched by accident that was good. And I won't say it colored my judgment on the first episode, but the first episode has its problems. That being said, because I watched it when I got ready to do that episode, I rewatched it again now 2 more times. And I don't know if you were trying to get out in front of me saying it dragged, because I wasn't going to go there. Shockingly, Mike, it may drag. I'll concede that. I was like, wait a second. It doesn't drag. However,
I don't think it drags. I don't think it does. If it does, if people consider it dragging, I don't care, because this is just so much fun. And the way that they put this thing together, it just, I have a great time. And we'll talk about the whole structure of this story as we get there.
I think that it works as a longer episode because you have a true talent. And I mean, I'm not saying Peter Falk's not, and I'm not saying the other actors haven't been, but it's Donald Pleasence. I mean, it's Donald Pleasence. There haven't been a whole lot of actors who have been re-CGI'd into movies. Donald Pleasence is now one of them with the Halloween movies, you know, or at least
I did not know that.
I guess not I guess, yeah, well, sort of CG's sort of whatever. It's its own fucking thing. My point being, Donald Pleasence is one of the great character actors. I mean, he almost, I would say he almost stands alone. Is he the best Blofeld? Yeah. I think you could make a case either him or Telly Savalas, but I mean, Donald Pleasence, everything that he's in is better for him being in it. And this show is no different. I remember the last time we talked about him was when we did Ozploitation so many moons ago. And was he sexually assaulting a man in the desert?
Are you talking about Wake and Fright?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, he's fantastic in that. When he's got those coins over his eyes, he looks so creepy. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm a huge fan of Donald Pleasence, but no, I don't think it dragged. I actually think hour and a half, cool. Hell yeah. Worked for me throughout.
I love the way that they put this together. I love how we're introduced to Adrian Carsini, the Donald Pleasence character. I love how we're introduced to Columbo, that this guy's working all hours of the night, it seems, when Rick's fiance comes in and is looking for missing persons. And then you get Columbo talking to this girl and kind of getting a leg up on the case before he even gets involved in the case. It's so nice. And then it takes forever for Columbo and Carsini to finally meet. And when they do, he's just like, if you're looking for the employment office, it's over there. It's so good.
One of the smarter things of this episode was having Columbo interacting with the victim's girlfriend, fiance, soon to be wife. I think that's, for me, is one of the smartest things in this episode, because we haven't seen anything like that before, where it's like Columbo is just working on something else that, oh, by the way, it happens to be, because you get to see his face when the guy's like, oh, and his name is Carsini. How do you know him? Oh, because he invited me to these parties, and, he was, a rich guy. And it's like that moment, you can see it on Columbo's face. I mean, heaven forbid we had a less emotive actor playing Columbo than Peter Falk, but man, you see it on his face the moment he internalizes, like, okay, something's going on here. But I will say, I like the setup. I like the idea of Donald Pleasence being Italian never gets old.
Half Italian.
Sure. I love that. I love these, him and his brother don't have the same mother, but they have the same father. So that's kind of their explanation, as it were. But I like the setup. I also like that it is clear as the episode goes on that Donald Pleasence's character is a real piece of shit. Like a complete and utter clown when it comes to money management and managing the money. And he sees the business as his own little fucking slush fund. And it's not readily apparent that that's the case when we open the episode. It seems more like Gary Conway kind of deserves it. And the longer the episode goes on, the more we find out, no, in fact, that's not the case. And that, for me, I think is one of the smartest pieces of storytelling that they've done, is kind of subvert the expectation, because normally we expect, the murderer is often villainous outwardly and is, doing something that, again, would be considered backhanded or malicious. This time, you can see early on, it's like, well, you kind of feel for Donald Pleasence's character. He's kind of a little quieter, a little bit more reserved, not as brash as Gary Conway, but the episode does something really smart and kind of starts twisting it and making you realize more and more, like, I mean, obviously he's willing to kill, so there is that, but you realize more and more, like when he goes to the wine auction, like, oh no, this guy is actually just a complete clown. Like, and he just doesn't, he lets his worst impulses guide him, which I think is more or less one of the overwhelming themes of Columbo, is people who feel like they're protected for whatever reason often don't have that limiter, that restrictor in terms of letting their impulses get the better of them. Most people would not murder someone if they thought they couldn't get away with it. I guess if you think you can get away with it, then you do whatever the hell you want. And that kind of is one of the big themes of Columbo, but I love that here it really subverts it.
Carsini to me is the dark side of Columbo, because he does something at the beginning where well, actually, I guess it's more towards the first third of it, where he's talking with all of his wine snob buddies, and he starts to talk about the wine that he's drinking, and they're all super impressed. And he's just like, well, while you were talking about this, I was actually reading the label. And then it's just a few scenes later that we get Columbo.
I think you're really gonna like this wine. It's
Oh, don't tell me. Let me guess. Sensitive breeding. Rich bouquet. Strong velocity. Well, it's a Burgundy. I'm just not sure whether it's a Pinot Noir or a Gamay.
That's really excellent. Yeah. You astound me. It is, in fact, a Pinot Noir. How'd you guess it?
I know Cassini only makes 3 red wines. 2 Burgundies, Pinot Noir and a Gamay, and 1 Claret, Cabernet Sauvignon. Now, you served me the Cabernet Sauvignon the other day. It didn't taste like this. So I know that this has to be a Burgundy, and it's either a Pinot Noir or a Gamay.
You really are a sly one, Lieutenant.
He's using the power of deduction like freaking Sherlock Holmes in order to tell him what this wine is. And I'm like, oh, that's great. I love that they both are doing these tricks, and that they're both doing tricks to each other. And Carsini, Adrian, just feels like he's just shocked every time this funny little man is able to come out with something brilliant or something even halfway smart. He just gets so tickled. But at the same time, oh God, I love Donald Pleasence's face. At the same time, every time that Columbo just puts the screws to him, it's just like, oh, you see it drop just a little bit, just drops that look. And you're like, okay, like there's that amazing, like, because Carsini at one point, sorry, I'm jumping all over. He even tries to do a one more thing to Columbo. It's when they're walking out of the winery and they're walking together and it's silent, and Carsini doesn't want it to be silent. So he starts to ask questions, and he basically is doing one more thing to Columbo. And then Columbo moves ahead and then turns around and starts shouting back to him, oh, just one more thing. Oh, by the way. And he starts laying into him. It's just like, you know, oh, there wasn't any rain on the car. How do you explain that? You know, it just, he's always got something. He's just like sticking those little knives into Carsini, and you're just like, oh, this is so good. Just to see the gears turning on both of these guys' faces, it's wonderful.
But I like the idea that it's also pretty clear that Carsini doesn't feel like, this is the thing I can't figure out with his reasoning. His reasoning is, I'm going to kill my brother to prevent my brother from selling the winery that my father gave to us in a really antagonistic way. He gave me the business and he gave you the land. And what I love is that both of them, at least Adrian Carsini, is too stupid to realize what the intention of that was to begin with, was to literally set these two people on this like horrifying collision course, which, I mean, again, I don't think that's the thing. Like, we never get a sense of the other brother when he's on screen. We only get a sense of him after the fact from everyone else. I genuinely wonder if the other brother had been put in the position of Donald Pleasence, if he would have done the same thing, because it kind of seems like that's what this scenario was set up for. Just Donald Pleasence makes that first move. And I say that because, again, like, I find Adrian Carsini to be the most interesting Columbo villain we've seen so far, because, again, he is the most human feeling. Like, he's not mustache twirling the entire time. And even when he's going tit for tat with Columbo, like towards the end of the episode, when they're having the dinner at the restaurant, and then, you know, Columbo does the thing with the wine, which is like the next level dickhead move of dickhead moves. Like, oh, they were all in on it. It's like a Penn and Teller skit or something. I love that even then it's like, it doesn't feel the way it did with a Robert Culp or you know, anybody else like this. It's like the fact that Adrian Carsini murdered someone kind of gets forgotten. And it's just like, this guy is just a dickhead who needs to be stopped acting like a dickhead and making other people essentially lie for him. And the only person who's up to that task is Columbo.
I love when Rick reveals, I'm going to sell the land to the Marino brothers. And you see the rage on
69 cents a gallon.
And I love when Rick is just like, well, Adrian, maybe they'll keep you around, let you lick the labels. And I just love that alliteration with the lick the labels, and just also the idea of him using that beautiful palate that he has for wine to lick the cheap labels for the Marino brothers' cheap wine.
It's understandable why he gets where he is at that moment. I do think that the way he kills his brother does, in terms of informing us to the depths of this person's depravity, the way he kills his brother is pretty fucked up.
Very fucked up.
In terms of like what we've seen in this show so far. So just to contrast it against the last episode, most of the time the people are being clubbed to death. Like sharp blow to the back of the head, blunt force. I mean, it would be blunt force trauma, right? Which I guess is what this is too, sort of, but it's way worse because he's alive, like this whole time. And his brother essentially just suffocates.
Well, that's the thing is, I wonder, does Adrian know that his brother is still alive when he puts him down in the wine cellar? He does?
I think, yeah. I mean,
because he seems kind of surprised when he comes back and there's stuff that's amiss, and because he goes to New York for a week-long trip and comes back, and when he comes into the wine cellar, there's stuff that's kind of messed up. And I'm surprised that the brother didn't just smash every single bottle in the place. That's probably what I would have done just for spite. At first, I read that he died of dehydration. I was like, no, can't die of dehydration when you have like 1,000 bottles of wine around. Maybe I guess you could, but really, so he either suffocates or really he might have baked to death in that, because don't they say it got up to 150 or is it 15 degrees in there?
Yeah, well, it had to sour the wine, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because, yeah, most of the time people, they just die immediately and they're like, oh, they're dead. But yeah, this guy like suffered for whatever happened. Like if he baked to death or if he just suffocated because it was airtight. I assume it's just he suffocated because it was airtight. But that's still not like, that's still awful. And I mean, again, murder is murder any way you look at it. And the murderer in Columbo always needs to be stopped. But yeah, it's his choice of how he kills his brother. I found it to be really awful. And like, again, like very personal, obviously, but that's the intent, given the amount of emotion that went into the decision he made.
In that he can think that quickly on his feet is pretty good as well. And then able to do a part 2 to his own murder by taking Rick's car and driving it out and throwing him over the edge and then leaving the car there. Just that whole, he must have been out scuba diving, and that's how he suffocated. And goddamn, as soon as Columbo hears that news story on the TV, just the whole thing of like, did it rain last Tuesday? Did it rain last Tuesday? Just like asking everybody, going over and like calling the weather. Oh, no, I have to call this other number. Okay. And then as he's waiting, he's talking to the guy next to the phone. Did it rain last Tuesday?
Can we talk about the dude in the bar with Columbo that keeps interrupting him?
Yes. Ugh. The one and only Robert Donner of Mork and Mindy fame. He was Exeter on Mork and Mindy. He is amazing. I love when he shows up in anything, and just to show up in this to be an annoying drunk.
Yeah, it's like I like how he's just like, hey, you need to go scuba dive. You need a partner, never dive without a buddy. And Columbo's like, would you shut your fucking mouth? But what's funny is like, what's really funny is when it was Columbo going and bothering Bert, it was Columbo doing this exact same shit to somebody else. It's funny to watch Columbo being so dialed in, and he's normally the one like pestering and bothering and making himself admittedly intentionally a nuisance. This guy is just, a drunk at the bar.
It feels like they said to Donner, okay, just bother him. Like, I don't care what you do, but bother Peter Falk. And that was his assignment, and that's all he had to do with his acting, and I loved it. And this is also the first appearance of Vito Scotti as the maitre d'. He's going to show up, I think, 6 times in Columbo. Of course, he is just my favorite. I mean, he's one of the two guys one of the three guys, I always forget Johnny Fontaine, asking for favors on the day of Don Corleone's daughter's wedding, when he's there talking about Enzo, the baker, and like, oh, they're going to take him away and make him go back to Italy, and how he's describing the cake and he can't even finish describing the cake. He just like does the chef's kiss, and that's
Wait till you see the beautiful wedding cake I made for your daughter. Oof, like this. The bride and the groom with the angel.
Him and the wine steward when they do that little thing with their lips towards the end when they're tasting the wine.
There is a lot of like weird comedy beats in this episode, that being one of them. It was like so strange. Like, where is this coming from? Like, this is such a bizarre moment. It seemed like it was from some other kind of show. Did it not? Like, I don't know. Like, I loved it. I was totally on board with it, but I was like, this is a weird beat for Columbo. Because I'm not saying Columbo's not funny. I think we've talked about the funnier moments, but I think the moments that are funny are not played for laughs, quote unquote, at least not intentionally like mugging for the camera, essentially laughs.
I love how when Rick first talks with Adrian, he says, oh, I knew you'd be up here. Only fanatics work on a Sunday. And then when Adrian turns around and his secretary suddenly shows up, Karen suddenly shows up, he's like, oh, don't you know only fanatics work on Sundays? Trying to send her away. I was like, okay, this is kind of neat that he's using his brother's words against his secretary, and that he's got that listening device in his office so that he knows that they're going to give him that award. I was surprised that Columbo didn't key in on that, because he says at one point, well, I knew they were going to give me an award, so that's why I let him decant the wine, that barbarian from Texas.
Yeah, that was a red herring I thought would come back. I guess it didn't. It went a different direction. I think I know we talked about this in the second season. I feel like a lot was it the second, maybe more the first season, where they had a lot of like intentional red herrings, like intentional loose ends, but not really a loose end, but just a direction that they wouldn't go, but it kind of seems like they had that opportunity. So I mean, I like that about this episode. And I will say I do like his secretary, and kind of, because again, like, what I can't figure out is his secretary bending him over a barrel at the end?
She wants to. She wants to blackmail him. Yeah.
Right. I guess, but she wants to blackmail him for love?
Right. Yeah.
But that's the thing. Like, it's not the money.
Yeah, it's really strange that she wants him as a lover rather than as a partner or a source of income, because he's going to blow through all that money. And like, plus he has to destroy all of his wine by the end of the episode.
Yeah. Yeah. I like the interaction between the two of them. I just think maybe it was a little much. It ends up not factoring into anything. It just feels like a weird kind of, not like a vestigial tale, but what was the point? Like, Columbo was going to catch him one way or another with what Columbo did at the restaurant. He was always going to catch him.
I like that Adrian, though, is like, oh, well, you're basically saving me, because Karen.
Yeah, she's lying for him.
Yes. Well, Karen has her designs on me, and thank goodness. But he says something about like freedom's just another word
freedom's a reality.
Yeah. Nothing left to lose. Yeah, just the way that he's like, okay, yeah, I'd rather go to jail than be with Karen.
Yeah, essentially what he says at the end of the episode. He's like, freedom is essentially like a state of mind. And it's like, okay, I mean, effectively, you're not wrong. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it's kind of the flip side to, the phrase, like, there are some things worse than death. Like, and that's, like, he kills his brother, but by the end of the episode, he is hucking $5,000 bottles of wine into the ocean. Oh. So, like, which I think the character of Adrian Carsini would contend is a worse fate than death.
Oh, 100%. You can see the pain on his face when he's doing it. And that he bought that one $5,000 bottle of wine just so no one else could have it. And I love how he changes his story, how he's just like, well, nobody really needs a $5,000 bottle of wine. I just don't want anybody anybody else to have it. But then later on, he's just like, well, some wines are for drinking, but some are for buying and selling. And I'm like, no, you were saying that some are for keeping out of the hands of other people, lording it over.
So what's funny is I've been watching, it's an old show, and this, again, kind of just weird synchronicity. I've been watching a show from the BBC called Oz and James's Big Wine Adventure, where it's Oz Clarke, who's like a well-known wine sommelier, and then James May, who's one of the three dudes from Top Gear / what's the Grand Tour. And it's all about wine. And so Oz takes James around France to go to Bordeaux and all these places. And there is a moment that is eerily similar to a conversation that's had in this episode, where it's the idea of this woman is telling Oz and James about this really expensive bottle of wine from 1945 that she has. And Oz goes, it doesn't matter if it's good or bad. You just bring it out and show it to people that you have it. That is such a weird concept because, I mean, you know, as someone who has a fair amount of like collectible things, I don't have them in their packaging. And that's kind of the same thing. It's like, in my opinion, wine is meant to be drank or drunk, whatever verb you want to use. And that is like a weird antithetical way of looking at it, but it almost, to use it, makes it, or at least reinforces for me, this like really erudite asshole character at the heart of Donald Pleasence's performance, where it's, oh, I'll just buy it so I can have it. You know, and like that character and that idea for me, like, again, like I've seen it in a real life scenario, so it's not that hard to imagine, but that's like a weird there's a weird moment that I feel like people would be like, oh, it's not really a thing. It's like, no, it's definitely a real fucking thing. And like, I don't get it at all.
Well, I love that the cleverness of the writing has him writing that fake check to Rick being sent by his secretary, being sent by Karen, like, oh, send Rick a congratulations and make out a $5,000 check. And she's just like, oh, you're so generous. And then it's like, oh, I'm going to actually spend $5,000 on this bottle of wine. Like, one's a fake thing that I know is fake, but the other one is real money, which in 1973, $5,000. I mean, you're talking like $30,000-$40,000 worth of like now money, I think.
I don't know. Like, again, like Donald Pleasence's character feels really well thought out in a real human way. And like, that's the thing about Columbo is some of these villains have been played rather one note and rather kind of like one tone throughout. You know, I think the last episode, you know, Vera Miles, I think was kind of one note throughout. Like, I don't know, Donald Pleasence brings a lot to this episode that, again, he's Donald Pleasence for a reason. He transcended so many different genres, be it, you know, Escape from New York, be it Halloween, be it, I mean, again, so many other things that, I mean, again, we could go on for hours and talk, you know, do a whole goddamn podcast about Donald Pleasence. I mean, again, even mentioned James Bond, THX 1138, like, again, there's so much stuff. So for me, it's like when you have the right person in the right position on this show, everything else just kind of falls into place is kind of what it feels like.
Well, did you read the story of how this got cast?
Go ahead.
So first off, when Stanley Ralph Ross wrote this, he had Victor Buono in mind for the role, which I think would have been great. They sent it over to Robert Shaw. And I read this in, I can't remember which Columbo book it was. Might have been David Koenig's, might have been the Woodziaks, I'm not sure. But basically, Shaw had an agreement with Pleasence, where if Pleasence got a script that he thought Shaw should do, or Shaw got a script that he thought Pleasence should do, they could just say yes. They could say yes for one another. They must have had a great friendship to be able to do that for one another. So Shaw said, no, it's not for me, but this is for Donald Pleasence. And he basically was able to like sign his name on the contract. So thank you, Robert Shaw.
Can you imagine that?
Yet another great Bond villain. Yes.
Yeah, really. Like, oh my God. You and I are friends. Can you imagine just like, oh, I'm friends with Robert Shaw and I can just say yes for him. Wow. And this person happens to be Donald Pleasence. Like, what fucking insanity. old 70s Hollywood was a different time. Like, I don't think anybody's doing that now. I don't think George Clooney and Matt Damon have that kind of thing. Maybe they do. Like, maybe Matt Damon and Ben Affleck have that kind of thing. I don't see that anymore. Like, that feels like such a quaint and different time in Hollywood, but a time that, like, it seems more appealing to me. I don't know. The 70s, I don't think it's any coincidence that you and I have spent years together talking about 70s television, and I was not even fucking born anywhere near this time. But yet I think for me, for whatever reason, this time and place in television and movies has resonated with me a lot. And like, Columbo is, I mean, every opportunity to watch Columbo is just another time to see 1970s LA and be part of, like, again, well-made 70s television, which kind of hits like no other TV does.
You mentioned comedy before, and there's some great bits. Like, I thought it was great that they had the way that Columbo was being introduced, that I mentioned before, that she's looking for missing persons, finds him, and he starts to get the story out of her. And it's like, well, you know, maybe he got cold feet. And she's like, well, he's been married 3 times before. Well, I guess his feet are pretty warm by now.
Oh, man.
And then he kind of meets, quote unquote, Adrian Carsini via the letter that he wrote, or that Karen wrote on the plane, because she has that letter and reads it. So it's like Columbo is getting the scoop from, you know, he's meeting, quote unquote, Carsini before he actually meets him, which is a nice thing, because it does take a while for us to have these two go at it. I mean, even before he meets Adrian Carsini, he meets Karen, but there's also the whole thing of him, you know, he goes to the crime scene, gets more information about the Carsinis there. It's actually Columbo that tells the fiance that her fiance, that Rick, is dead. And I like that you don't hear him say that. You get that nice long shot, and then you cut to, I would almost think it's Columbo's POV of her face accepting or hearing the news and being so taken aback that she sits down in the chair. And it's the first time I think that Columbo can actually see the reaction of somebody right then and there. It's like, usually he comes in like 5 minutes later.
Right.
You know, there are times where he's like been there for news, like, oh, the Russian chess champ is missing, like those kind of things. But this one of like him telling her about her fiance being dead and getting that reaction. Then you get that guy from the old Lou Grant show. He's hanging out there and he's all mad about Adrian Carsini. And like, I love how all the people around her are just like, yeah, Adrian Carsini, he's kind of a dick, man. I don't know.
Right. So to answer a question that you've kind of been walking around, it's 43 minutes.
Oh, really?
Is what it takes
wow.
Before they meet. Yeah. It's like 43 minutes into the episode. So, and the episode's an hour and a half. So that's halfway through.
That's great.
And, you know, well, and that's the thing, you know, I feel like in other episodes, they haven't let the beginning part breathe so much, but also they haven't, like, this, you know, I feel like in last episode, I kind of complained about it. There's no complaint here. There's plenty of Columbo in this episode.
Oh, yeah.
Like, to the point where, like, it makes up for how little there was last episode, really. Like, I mean, not completely, but in terms of, like, Peter Falk being able to do a lot, like, they give him a lot to do here.
Well, and he's finding out so much about the case before he ever gets there. Like,
right.
Finding out, you know, talking with the fiance at the police station, talking with the fiance later on, talking with the neighbor of the Carsinis, who talks about how they have these parties and these things. Him talking with the little old man who's sweeping up around the winery, taking the guided tour of the winery and talking with that guy who seems like his voice is dubbed, or maybe it's just some ADR. And there's that woman who seems like a plant in the wine tour, who's just like, I'm not a big wine drinker. What about this? And I'm like, who are you, lady?
Yeah, right.
And even like going, you know, gets to go to the lab and, you know, see the lab guy and talking with Karen before he goes over there. And like, he's really being kind of a dick to Karen right off the bat, which I like, and that he apologizes to her later for being flip. I was like, Okay, because like normally he doesn't antagonize people right off the bat, but it's usually just his presence that does it. But he is really kind of picking on her, which I like.
Yeah, it takes 20 minutes for us to see Columbo in this episode. Like
Yeah.
to get to that moment with him and the fiance. Like it takes a while. Like again, like I think the thing I'm most impressed by this episode is that it just really takes its time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It takes its time. I'm not saying other episodes haven't, but I think the best episodes of this show really take their time.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. And Columbo meets Adrian, and Adrian's not upset at all about Rick's death. And Adrian just goes, the Lord giveth and the Lord,
Yeah, it's like if Columbo didn't know you murdered your brother from that moment, I don't know when he would have, bro. Like, I will say the way it resolves itself, I appreciate it. I appreciated that the heat wave ruining the wine and therefore all the wine. Like, I like that kind of progression in that series of events that take us from point A to point B to point C. I like that a lot. I think that for me is, again, one of the better how Ketchum explanations. Because again, it not only it speaks to what the episode's about, which is the wine industry. It is the wine industry, but it's not specifically a wine thing so much as like a thing that can happen. So it's, again, like it kind of, I don't know, it also speaks to the killer catches themselves because they're so confident in their ability, but Columbo has the upper hand. And I love that as well, because he puts the noose around his own neck effectively and tightens it. Like, and that for me is just like Russ Martin, where he's like, like, what have I done? It's like, you did this to yourself.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that he throws that fucking fit. This liquid filth.
Yeah. Oh, little do you know.
This is dreadful.
Monsieur,
This is dreadful. Don't you realize that a great wine is like a great work of art? It has to be nurtured. It has to be taken care of. You have subjected this port to a temperature in excess of 150 degrees. Such disdain cannot and must not be tolerated. I advise you not to pay for the check.
But, sir, I think that...
This wine has been oxidized by overheating. No. Where did you keep it? On top of the stove?
I assure you, monsieur...
Don't you know any delicate wine spoils by being subjected to a rapid change in temperature? Serving this iodine is an insult.
Monsieur Carsini, is there something wrong?
Is there something wrong? Everything is wrong. An exciting meal has been ruined by the presence of this liquid filth.
Monsieur Carsini, it is not our intention, but there will be no check for this table. No.
Oh, no,
We have our
listen,
repetition
I
to follow.
insist.
No,
No,
monsieur.
sir, no.
I
We had a
insist.
very
I
good
should
meal.
No, come, listen.
I apologize, monsieur.
We had a very good meal, I must...
No, thank you very much. It's all right. No, it's all right. No, thank you. No.
Oh, and I love that is Columbo's apology dinner. You know, I feel so bad for hounding you. Really, I want to take you to the best place and give you this. And I love how Scotty puts him near the kitchen, and when Pleasence arrives, he's just like, this will not do, take him to my regular table. And Scotty's just like, oh, I'm so sorry. Just super embarrassed that he put this funny little man over by the kitchen, as he should be. Nobody should see this little guy. But once the big shot Adrian Carsini shows up, it's like, oh no, finest table in the house. So good. This is also the first time that this old man being associated with Columbo, which he does twice, once while he's waiting on the phone and once while he's walking with Pleasence. And that's going to kind of become his theme after this, which is a bizarre thing. I don't know how him whistling this old man becomes the Columbo theme, quote unquote.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was going to be a thing.
It's going to be a thing, yeah.
Okay.
I love all the things with the notebook and that he can't find a pencil, that he almost steals that Texas guy's pencil at one point, or pen. That's a really good pen.
What a weird way to like walk it back to like Peter Falk loves to make specific choices. And I feel like that's been Woman Under the Influence. I feel like that was like everything I said was like, this is a choice and he's making it. And like, I don't know, like, I love I think I'm with you. I loved this episode, and I'm not just saying that because I'm on this episode with you. This episode genuinely, I think so far sticks out as like a fantastic hour and a half of TV, to the point where it should have just been a movie.
You get so many damn details in here, little things like Columbo's dad was a tail gunner on a beer truck, the whole thing about his wife and that they needed a babysitter, but the babysitters got finals and all the rest of the teenagers are going to the rock concert. I just love all these little things that he's doing. The whole like, well, I'm not really good on details. So let me look at my notepad here, and just the way that he reads the stuff off, basically whatever Donald Pleasence just said, I'm going to say the opposite because I wrote it down here in my little book. Like, how hot did it get? Well, let's see. The Weather Bureau said,
right.
Yeah. Do you know how hard it is to call the Weather Bureau at 11 o'clock at night?
You're right. The Weather Bureau. I will also say this episode has something that I don't think any other episode has really had, which is a moment with Columbo and the murderer after the murderer has been caught. And it is such a like weirdly poetic scene, and like it almost makes you cry how fucking weird it is and how sad it is, and how you genuinely feel like Columbo, if not for the fact that this guy murdered someone, they probably would have been friends.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well,
right?
Just that begrudging respect between them. Like the way that Carsini starts off with that, well, you're Italian, you should know wines. Didn't your parents ever drink wine? And then by the end of the episode, Columbo's able to pick all the right wines. I mean, he goes to that wine store, and I love that it's the guy from Police Academy there, but with this outrageous French accent.
Yeah, it's
and he picks all of the right wines for every course of the meal, and Carsini's just so tickled by all that stuff. And yeah, it's like now all of a sudden it's this respect that Carsini has for Columbo. And I think if he didn't have that respect, I think at the end when Columbo says, "Are you going to give me a confession?" I think he might have hesitated, but at this point, Carsini's just like, "Oh yes, oh no problem."
Yeah, and then I mean, yeah, them sharing that dessert wine, and he's like, "What's going to happen?"
Yeah, that he
like it's gonna
drives him to the winery, and they hang out front.
Yeah, and he has like a wine. They have like a dessert wine, and Columbo even says something to the effect of like, you know, that's like the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me when he like talks about his like ability to understand wine. It's like, again, like it's a weird episode because it's very respectful of the murderer in a way that like the other episodes haven't been. They humanized him, but also gave him enough rough edges that it's understandable why he is the way he is and why the people in his life treat him the way that they treat him, because he treats them that way.
Well, it's funny because there's one other episode that immediately comes to mind of a criminal and Columbo sharing a moment after the big moment, after the reveal kind of thing. And that's also written by the same guy. So I wonder if that was kind of his thing, was to put that little moment in, that little denouement of the criminal and Columbo sharing a little bit of respect for one another.
Is that this season?
I think.
Or is that a ways down the road?
Might be this season. I think. Let me double check. It is this season. Yes.
Okay. I was wondering that too, because it's such a strange choice that I don't know, like it's such a strange choice. But again, I kind of feel like if you're the person writing this, you would do that every time, because it's a moment that we haven't seen in this show. Like in a lot of ways, this show cuts a moment of them being caught. Right. And a lot of, the Ross Martin thing comes to mind where he's, and then, freeze frame, like the end. Like, I liked that they gave them this moment because, again, they as characters kind of earned it, as it were.
Yeah. That whole thing about who's going to look after the grapes. And Columbo's like, it'll go on, sir. It's just so nice.
Like, yeah, it'll go on. Like, and yeah, it's a weird moment, but I do like where, he's waxing poetically about the wine and then Columbo just downs it like a shot anyways. Which, I mean, again, but that speaks to the two characters, because the one character has been sitting eruditely sipping wine all episode, and Columbo, just as the working man that he is, just whatever. It's just wine.
I love too that one of the gotcha moments is that he let the Texas guy decant the wine, and Columbo's like, I thought you said that you never let anybody else decant a wine that you're going to drink. And he's just like, oh, he and I can't remember. I think it's Columbo says he has a very steady hand, and then it's just like 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, and then finally Carsini's like, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, the even just the filmmaking of this episode. I mean, we're not super flashy like we were with Mr. Spielberg or anything, but it's just solid. Everything is solid. It's the right choices for almost every single shot in this. And the way we go back and forth between Pleasence and Falk, just masterful.
It doesn't have the reflections in the glasses, nonsense. And I say nonsense, but again, it's like, doesn't do anything other than it's just a stylistic choice. Like, there's none of that here, but doesn't need it. I think the story that they're telling kind of does enough. There's enough legs and there's enough intrigue to kind of, I think, shoulder most of the weight of this episode. Because again, like, there's a lot going on here. There's 30 minutes of exposition before we even get to Columbo, essentially. So, and none of it's wasted, and none of it is wasted. That's the most impressive part, is there really isn't anything that sitting here and thinking, I was like, oh, that's not needed. I mean, yeah, Donald Pleasence's relationship with his secretary, it's kind of an unnecessary pressure point because there already is enough pressure, but it's just one more kind of nail in his coffin. It makes his decision easier, is what it feels like. It's the contribution of her and Columbo, because he realizes, like, he also doesn't want his freedom is not free anyways. Freedom is purely relative, is what he says. Because yeah, I mean, if he doesn't admit it to Columbo, which he wouldn't have to, right? I'm assuming that's more or less what we figure out right at the end of the episode, is he turns himself in completely because he would have gotten away with it because she lied for him, which we have not seen that either in an episode. We have not seen someone willing to lie for Butler. In the greenhouse episode kind of was there, but they murdered him. Like, they ended up killing him so that they could prevent that from happening. It's interesting. It's unneeded, but it's interesting. I wish it had factored in a little bit more and wasn't just like, oh yeah, she's lying for you because she wants to marry you for, again, I guess, your money. The marriages have been started on less.
It's funny because there's one moment where Adrian is being really very nice to her, because there's the moment where they're on the plane and she asks about going home, and he's like, oh yes, I left my car here. And she's like, well, I guess I'll take a taxi. And he's like, okay, see ya. And it's like, oh man, that was a dick move to do, but all right. And then later on, he's really kind of sucking up to her. And I was like, is he planning on marrying her so she can't testify against him? And then later on, when she turns the tables and suddenly it's like, oh, we're going to get married. And I was like, this is almost good because she won't be able to testify against him, or vice versa. So it's like, okay. Because otherwise, I think she is one-way ticket to second murder town here. She's like the lady in Murder by the Book, who is like, oh no, we have to talk. The nice lady at the general store that ends up being killed by Jack Cassidy.
Yeah, that's honestly what I was expecting them to set her up as, and it doesn't go there. So
I was glad it doesn't.
Yeah. No, I don't think it needed it. I don't know. I mean, again, it's kind of a weird thing, but it does ultimately work. It's just, I don't know. That was my only quibble, but it's not really a quibble. It's just like a weird choice because it's just unneeded in terms of pressure points, because it seems like the best villains are really pressured into having no other choice. And I guess she adds to it, but I think he would have admitted it either way, because Columbo has him dead to rights with that warm ass bottle of liquid filth.
That outburst is so great. And I just love that he gets out of paying the bill. That too.
Yeah. Pleasence has outbursts like no other actor. I mean, like, you are the Duke, you're right. I mean, like, that's that level of like weird spasmodic energy that Donald Pleasence could really like have. And what's weird is when you think about him and James Bond as Blofeld, there's none of that.
No.
He's not playing it like that at all, which again is weird because when I think of the most menacing versions of Donald Pleasence, it's kind of the one where he could explode at any moment. And yet in that role, it's like the most restrained you'll see him in a villain role, which is an odd choice, but it totally works because it's in and of itself kind of menacing. That's the thing. He's not really menacing here, which I don't think he needed to be. He's just kind of a loser. Like, and that role, like the person that I could see having played this role is like a Jack Lemmon, where it's like, you're just pathetic, dude. Right, like a Shelley the Machine Levine.
He's just going to keep buying wine and not selling it and trying to get other accolades and awards. And he's just going to keep pissing away the whole thing. The whole thing of like Carsini stands for quality. That's great and all. But that probably means that they don't, I mean, even though they show all those bottles being bottled and stuff, I don't think that they're making money hand over fist. Not like the Marino brothers, who I think were stand-ins for Vincent and Giulio Gallo, who made the really super cheap stuff. Who did they sell no wine before it was time?
Ah, the French champagne.
It took Beethoven 4 years to write that symphony. Some things can't be rushed. Good music and good wine. Paul Masson's Emerald Dry. A delicious white wine. Paul Masson wines taste so good because they're made with such care. What Paul Masson himself said nearly a century ago is still true today. We will sell no wine before it's time.
What I find funny, though, in reality, if Adrian Carsini existed now, it would be like, it's an exclusivity thing. And like, it wouldn't be a big deal that they're making very little wine. They would just be selling it at exorbitant prices. And that's the thing. It's like the argument that the episode kind of has feels a little quaint and dated, because it is a little quaint and dated. Because I used to work at a brewery that was just like this place, where it's like, we only make a certain amount and we don't distribute it, and you got to come buy it from us. And by doing that, they made the exclusivity part of the experience. And I mean, they don't acknowledge it in this episode because in the 70s, I guess that wasn't as much of a thing with consumer products, and especially not with food and wine, at least not in this country the way it is now. But like this, there is a quaintness to this episode that I do appreciate, because them going, well, you're just selling fewer bottles than everybody else. It's like, yeah, but you're forgetting the whole, it could be like $300 a bottle and it is amazing wine thing, which again, they kind of gloss over because that wouldn't have suited the premise at all. But it is kind of funny because Adrian Carsini in 2023 probably would have been very vindicated. So
did this place that you worked at, did they have kind of a cool logo that they would put on their t-shirts and try to sell a lot of t-shirts at the brewery?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I know places like this. Yeah.
Yeah. And they had it on like hats and shirts, and then they had the labels on the wall. Yeah. I mean, again, like places like this are a fucking thing now. So yeah, Carsini wineries would have been a big deal. I will say though, I think my favorite part of the episode in terms of like set production is the window outside of Adrian Carsini's office, which is like the fakiest looking fucking thing. The rolling hills of wherever that's supposed to be, when it's like clearly just meant to be Los Angeles. Like there's nothing that looks like that near LA. That's like a fucking Napa or something. It cracks me up because when they showed it from outside at the opening, I was like, okay. And then when they show in that shot, I was like, where is this supposed to? Where is that? So no, this is a fun ass episode.
I suppose that's the most ostentatious this episode gets, is when it's that, I'm guessing it's a helicopter shot that's going across the grapes and then to the building and then kind of goes up, and meanwhile they're doing a dissolve into what I can only assume is like the Enophile of the Year award that he just won, and then they go into the winery and then you get the tour thing. It's like kind of like three things all overlaid at one point. I was like, oh, that's kind of nice. It's a nice shot.
I am really glad that this episode is as good as it is, because kind of restored my faith in terms of like the show knowing how to do themed episodes in terms of like going to a place and having a thing set around it. And this episode really embraces the wine part of this episode in a way that like the last episode really didn't. And some of the other episodes that were set in the world of X, Y, or Z didn't. And again, this episode, just the eye for it and the plot and the performances all really are complementary to, so far for me, I think one of in conversation for one of the best episodes of the show. I think I still like the Leonard Nimoy episode a whole hell of a lot. Obviously, that's a really fun one. And the Lawrence Harvey episode, I think, would be in contention for me in terms of like best episodes we've seen so far. I really enjoyed that Lawrence Harvey episode. But that's also because, again, Lawrence Harvey is playing a similar character to Donald Pleasence, a pathetic loser who can't deal with the fact that he's lesser in some regard, actually or perceived.
Yeah, and again, not necessarily a rich asshole, but an elite. I mean, that you make your living playing chess, and this guy here makes his living selling wine and buying wine, buying a $5,000 bottle of wine. I'm sure to people in 1973, it was just like, look at this guy. What the hell's he doing?
Just cuz lol. Yeah, he's a dick. Like, he's a wine snob, but in the worst way. Like, yeah, the guy who buys things just to have it. Oh, I've got 30 cars. Motherfucker, you can only drive one at a time. Yeah, how many bottles of wine can one person drink in a day? Well, not that many, if they ever want to drink them at all.
Catch me on a Friday night. How about that?
I have grown more as a wine drinker in the last couple years, so I do appreciate. I feel like if I had watched this maybe 5 years ago, been like, okay, the wine thing, but even been enjoying wine a lot more, so I appreciated this episode that much more as well.
I'm the kind of guy that just wants to have a glass of wine with his chili.
I did that over the weekend.
Nice.
Yeah, I did have a glass of wine with my chili. It did say on the bottle of wine for winter stews, and I don't think it says like for summer barbecues and wintry stews, compliments. And I was like, I mean, chili is wintry and stew-ish. You guys don't eat cinnamon rolls with chili in your neck of the woods.
Not normally, no.
Yeah, that's a here thing.
Okay.
Wine and chili is a Michigan thing, right?
If sure. Yeah. That's all we
White
do.
wine, like a nice sweet, like a Moscato and chili. Doesn't that sound good?
You want the red wine steward or the white wine steward?
The sweet wine steward, please.
Yeah, really. That's all. Give me some MD 2020. I'll be okay.
Oh, Mogan David, man. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, where's Franzia in this conversation? None of this box wine. Like screaming about Donald Pleasence getting angry about box wine. There you go. Yeah, slap in the bag. There you go.
Updated for 2023.
Right.
Yeah, God, 50 years ago this episode was, and I was still laughing my ass off at certain parts of it and just so riveted at others. And this doesn't get old. Does not get old.
Like I said, this is one of the more enjoyable episodes, and even though it's a full-length feature, doesn't really drag. Like I said, I watched it 3 times, and I was not at any point like, oh, I can't believe I have to watch this again. I was looking forward to it. And again, Donald Pleasence and Peter Falk going back and forth ends up being a lot of the fun stuff, but the setup, I think, ends up being just as fun and entertaining. So didn't feel like an exposition dump like some of the episode opening 10-15 minutes can sometimes feel.
Well, when we come back next month, we'll be talking about another one that had a story by Larry Cohen, though a teleplay by 6 people are credited on this thing. So,
including a Barney Miller alumni.
Yeah, we were going to be talking about Candidate for Crime, starring Mr. Jackie Cooper. So until then, Chris, what are you up to these days?
Working on a lot of stuff over at weirdingwaymedia.com, including, like I kind of mentioned, a lot of 70s television podcasts. Barney Miller, Kolchak, this one, and then we have an 80s podcast. If you're a fan of TV shows with women from the 80s TV ladies, hosted by Richard Haddams, better half Susan Lambert Haddam, and Sharon Johnson, talk all about 80s TV, and they do the thing that we can't. They get to talk to those people because most of the people that were on this show aren't with us anymore, folks. But you know what? Jump forward 10 years, most of those people are still around. So if you want to hear that kind of stuff, weirdingwaymedia.com is where you can go.
As promised, here's an archival interview with Larry Cohen that I did with him on the projection booth. Enjoy.
Was writing your first entree into the business?
Yes, writing was my way in. Yes, indeed. I thought that's the best way to get in because people don't have to risk any money to see what you've got. You know, you go in with a script and you've already written it, and they can see what you've written and if they like it or not, or if they think it's promising. It's very hard to do it any other way. You could make a film, of course, but it takes time and a lot of people and money to do it right. And so I thought that was definitely the way to go. I enjoy writing, too, so it was no problem doing it.
What were those early days of television like when you got into it?
Well, it was a wonderful period because it was mainly live television. That was at the very tail end of the live TV period. So you got to sit down with the actors and the director and have a read-through of the script. And then there was rehearsals all week long, usually downtown Manhattan, in some loft. They would set up the furniture and simulate the set, and they would have the actors perform in rehearsal, and I'd be there. And then, of course, on show day, I had to be there because after the run-through in the afternoon, the show was either a little bit long or a little bit short, and the writer had to make adjustments. So they had you there, and then you sat through the show in the control booth and watched them do it. There was no stopping. That was it. So if anybody forgot their lines or forgot their blocking or something, you hoped that the audience wouldn't notice. It was a lot of fun. But then, of course, tape came in, and as soon as tape came in, that was the end of live. So then they didn't stop and go correct any mistakes that were made, and it was never the same after that. That was film. I got so that they stopped doing much in the way of taping also, except for sitcoms, because they thought that the film versions had more life and more rerun value over the years. So, and then and they shifted mostly to Hollywood. Pretty soon there was almost no television being done in New York City except for a couple of game shows. It became a different television. If you wanted to work in television, you had to go to California, which I did.
Can you tell me, how did Branded come about?
Branded was my first series that I sold and got on the air. That was unusual because we got the show on with just my 6-page treatment and Chuck Connor's commitment to star in it. Procter & Gamble agreed to sponsor the show on Sunday night at 8:30, which was a fabulous time period. And we came in after Walt Disney, and we were followed by Bonanza. So these were terrific shows, and they had a built-in audience. So we came in at a good spot. In those days, the sponsors, like Procter & Gamble, owned the time period, and they could program anything they wanted into that time period. That's all gone today. There's none of that anymore. But in those days, advertising agencies and their clients, who were the big sponsors, more or less owned the time periods. So we got on the air. We got on the air within a few months' time. We never even shot a pilot. We actually got the commitment to go on the air, and then we shot the first episodes, and it was a high-rated show. It was up in the top 10 for quite a while.
What was that period of time like for you when you were doing both feature films and still working in television?
Well, I like to write, so it didn't matter to me. I was going to write something every day. So if I wasn't working on the television show, I would probably, be writing a screenplay. The first screenplay I sold was Return of the Magnificent Seven, which was made with Yul Brynner, produced by the Mirisch Company. And it was quite successful, actually. It wasn't very good, but it was quite successful.
Well, that must have been a little bit of pressure trying to follow up on The Magnificent Seven.
Well, The Magnificent Seven was a strange story in that when it first was released, it didn't do very well at the box office at all. In fact, it never even got a major downtown release. It opened at the Brooklyn Theater and then played for days on the Lowe's circuit. And then it was gone. Nobody paid much attention to it at the time. It became very popular on television over the years because all the actors became stars. James Coburn, Charles Bronson, everybody became stars out of that picture, and especially Steve McQueen. So it built up its reputation from TV, and that's why the Mirish Company called me in and said, we want to make a TV series out of the Magnificent Seven. And I said, no, don't do that. I said, hey, you could get a sequel. You could get a movie out of this. And I talked him into doing a movie version of it rather than going and trying to do a television series. And Neil Brenner agreed to star in it. So we had something going for us. And, so I wrote the script. It took about 2 or 3 years for the damn thing to get made, even after I wrote the script. But it did get made. And at the time, they said to me, well, we can't use the music from the original picture because it's being used as an automobile commercial theme. And I said, well, if you're not going to use the music by Elmer Bernstein, then don't make the picture. There's no Magnificent Seven without that music. And again, I talked him into it. So, and that score was, for the sequel, was nominated for an Academy Award. It's funny that the original music for the first version was not nominated, but the same music over again was nominated for the sequel. It didn't win, but it was nominated anyway.
You've worked with Fred the Hammer Williamson a lot throughout your career, and I'm curious, what was that first time meeting him like?
Oh, it was perfectly amicable. We had a very nice time. He's got a great sense of humor. We could kid around and needle each other, and I always enjoyed Fred. I had a great time with him on all the pictures we did.
The movies that you've made with him, especially Black Caesar and Hell Up in Harlem, they just really stand out he's made a lot of great pictures over the years, but those films really stand out as being just terrific.
Well, he's made a lot of bad pictures too over the years, but those were two of the best. And Original Gangsters, which we did years later, I thought that was very well done and got very good reviews. And in that one, Fred was actually the producer. So we didn't get along quite as well because he was always worried about the money. He wanted to come in under budget so we could keep the money. And I told him we had to spend every penny to make a good movie. And we did. But he wasn't too happy about not having any leftover money for himself as a little bonus. But we did get the movie made, and we buried the hatchet after the picture was released and did well. We spent a lot of time together. He lives in Palm Springs. I go down and see him a lot.
You go golfing with him?
Oh, no, I don't do that. I wouldn't go out in that hot sun in Palm Springs with a golf club for anything.
What was your experience like working on Columbo?
Well, Peter Falk made his television debut in the second live show that I wrote on Kraft Playhouse. It was called Night Cry. Jack Klugman was the star. And Peter Falk came on and did like a 5-minute scene as a little informer trying to blackmail Jack Klugman. And I wrote this scene, and they got this guy. And as soon as we had a reading of the play, everybody was amazed at how great this new actor was. He had a glass eye, and in those days he hadn't mastered the art of hiding that. So the eye kept swimming all the time back and forth, and one eye would go in the wrong direction. It really worked for the character because he was supposed to be this underworld creature, and he was sensational in the part. And after the show was over, phones started ringing, and people were calling from all over, columnists and reviewers. They wanted to know who this guy was. And the producer of Murder Incorporated saw the show and decided to hire Peter Falk off that to play Abe Ellis in the movie Murder Incorporated, which was his motion picture debut, in which he wore the exact same costume he wore in my show and played the same character, basically, and got an Oscar nomination for it. So then his career was on the way, and we always stayed friends. And years later, he asked Universal to hire me to write some Columbo episodes for him, which I did.
Yours are definitely some of my favorite episodes, especially Any Port in a Storm.
Everybody likes that one. It's one of the best ones they ever did. I actually wrote the very first one of the series when they were. It was called Murder by the Book, and it was acclaimed. It got an Emmy nomination, and it was directed by Steven Spielberg. And From my point of view, the tragedy of it was I gave the script to Levinson and Link, the creators of the show, as a gift, and they turned around and gave it to Stephen Bochco, who put his name on it and collected the Emmy nomination and got to have a picture directed by Spielberg. He never said thank you, but he's been collecting the residuals on my story for maybe 30 years now, so it must have amounted to a lot of money that he got. I got no thanks at all from him, but and Levinson and Link never really thanked me very much either. And Universal sent me a color television as a gift. I hated that television set. It just shows you that when you do a good deed, and you try to help somebody, it often doesn't work out that well. You should mind your own business. It's my own fault, because I thought I was such a big shot I could just give away a story and so what. But I learned to regret it.
Can you tell me, how did God Told Me To come about?
Well, it was just another one of those ideas that came to me. And I wrote it. There was nobody else involved. There was no producer involved, and nobody looking over my shoulder. I just wrote the whole damn thing. Then we went out and put it together. I managed to get somebody to put up some money, and we made the picture. It's very apropos today because all these terrorists, they're all killing everybody in the name of God. And usually before they blow themselves up or shoot somebody, they yell, "God is good." And it's pretty close to God Told Me To. So I never thought that it would finally basically come through. But that's what's been going on, and that's what was happening in the movie.
Can you tell me how Andy Kaufman got involved in the film?
He got involved in the film because I saw him perform at the Improv in New York, and I thought he did a great job, and I went over to him afterwards and said, "Listen, I want to put you in a movie. I want to be the one who puts you in your first movie." And I told him the idea was that he was going to be dressed as a police officer and march in the St. Patrick's Day parade and then pull a gun and start shooting and assassinate a few people. And he looked at me. I'm sure he thought I finally met somebody crazier than myself. Everybody thought Andy was nuts, but they thought I was nuts too. So we were a perfect match. And he came down and he took him into a coffee shop so he could change into his police uniform. He started a ruckus in the store, and they had to ask him to leave. He started clowning around as a police officer. And when we got him out in the street, it's St. Patrick's Day, there was a lot of drunks around, and he's running over to the barricades and blinking his eyelashes at them and blowing kisses, and they were climbing over the barricades to kill him. I mean, I had to protect him from the crowd. And he was provoking everybody. And that was Andy. But he did get in the parade, and he did his job, and I think he was very good in the very brief part that he had. And then when he had to die at the end, and he says, "God told me to," which is his only line in the picture, as he's lying there dying. And we had no microphone because we didn't record sound with this parade coverage. So when we got into the mix, I had to do the line for myself. So actually it's Andy's lips moving, but it's my voice coming out saying, "God told me to." And when he finally saw the movie, Andy said to me, "Well, I know you didn't have any microphone there. How did you get my voice?" And I said, "Andy, it's not your voice, it's me." And he said, "I know my own voice. Don't tell me that." And he wouldn't believe it. And this went on for years. Up until the time he died, every time we ran into him, we had an argument about whose voice that was on the screen. And anyway, we were very friendly, and I was talking to him about doing another picture. And we were on the phone. He was calling me every couple of weeks. How's it coming along? I love the script. We got the money. When can we start? And all the time he was calling me, he was in a wheelchair dying, and he couldn't have done the picture anyway. And then one day somebody called me up and said, "Andy died." I said, "What are you talking about? I talked weeks ago." And that was the way it was. Maybe he had a hope that somehow or other he'd be cured and be able to do the movie. Or maybe he was just putting me on, But whatever it was a sad thing to see him go. He was a wonderful kid.
Can you tell me about the American Success Company? That is such a fantastic film, and it doesn't seem to get seen as much as it should.
I don't like that picture particularly, but it has its moments. I thought Jeff Bridges was wrong for the part. At the time, he wasn't much in the way of comedy, and it needed a comedian of some kind, somebody with a real comic sensibility. At one time, I had signed Peter Sellers to star in the picture. He was at the nadir of his career before the Pink Panther Returns came and brought him back again. But for a while, he was not able to get any pictures because he had a bunch of awful films that hadn't even been released. So when I got him for $100,000, he was at a bargain basement price, and I couldn't get anybody in Hollywood to give me the $100,000 to pay his salary. I had to go back to the agency and beg them not to charge me the money because I couldn't deliver the picture for him to star in. And they were kind enough to let me off the hook. But the meeting I had with Peter Sellers was very good, and I'm sure I would have had a lot of fun directing him. But anyway, when somebody came along and wanted to buy the script, I sold it to them. That was about it. I didn't have anything to do with the actual production of the picture. And I think they shot about 50% of the actual script. There was a lot more to it and a lot more twists, and they cut it down to a minimal. So what can you say? I'm glad you liked it anyway.
Have you ever had your screenplays published?
No. I would like that, though. If somebody would like to publish screenplays, I've got a bunch of ones that have never been seen before that would be wonderful to be published. But I don't know if there's much of a market for published screenplays.
Well, you've got so many stories that are just so tight. I mean, I'm not trying to butter you up, but it's just so many of your films are kind of a master's class to me of storytelling. Things like The Ambulance and Phone Booth. I mean, the scripts, the stories just ripple when they're on screen. I would love to be able to read those and just see the way that you put those together originally.
Well, I would be happy to have them published if anybody came forward and said they wanted them. They're here, and they're available, and I just don't intend to go banging on doors asking people to publish them. I'm too busy writing new scripts to be doing that.
You're still writing every single day?
Just about, yeah. Not on weekends anymore. But sometimes I even do it on weekends. If I have an idea and I want to keep going with it, I just, I don't care what day of the week it is. I'm going to write the damn thing.
How did Steve Mitchell approach you about King Cohen?
They called me on the phone and said they wanted to do a documentary about me. And I said, okay, but I'm not going to have anything to do with this, making it a documentary. I don't want to get involved in looking over your shoulder or critiquing what you're doing, because I'm a control freak. And if I get involved with something, I want to be in absolute control of every phase of it. And I don't want to do that with this project. I want you to go do what you want to do, and don't show it to me till after it's finished. So that's what we did.
What did you think of it when you finally saw the finished product?
I only just saw it up in Canada, in Montreal, at the film festival. It was the first time I saw the picture. I was pleased with it. There were some things I would have liked to have included that weren't in there, but in general, he did a very good job.
That has to be difficult to see. Well, maybe not difficult, but it has to be interesting to see your career being explored on screen by somebody else.
As I say, I tried to be objective and let them do what they wanted to do with the picture, and the audience seemed to like it, and it won the best documentary up in the Montreal Festival, so I guess it went over well. And I hear it went over very well in London just last week. So we'll see what happens. I know it's going to play in, there's an engagement in Austin, Texas, and one in Paris, and one in Lisbon. It's going into a lot of festivals. So I'll see what happens.
I know Maniac Cop and It's Alive have kind of taken on lives of their own and have gone on even past your involvement necessarily. But I am curious, when they do a remake of Maniac Cop or It's Alive, are you involved at all in those things?
Well, certainly not in that last It's Alive fiasco that was done in Bulgaria. It was really an embarrassment, but the money was very good. I enjoyed cashing the check, and that was the end of my enjoyment. The picture was just disastrous, and I certainly urge everybody not to see it. So, it was just a mess. And they wouldn't accept any help from me. So that's the way it was. As far as the Maniac Cop, there's 3 of them we made. There's talk about a 4th one, but I didn't write it. I have nothing to do with it, and except that they have to pay me a good deal of money, and I hope they make it. So I'm looking forward to cashing that check as well. But I have nothing to do with it. For some reason, they decided to have another writer come in. I guess they just are afraid that I would take control if I was involved, and they didn't want to give up control. So that was the way it was. It's okay because I had done enough Maniac Cops. I wanted to do something different. I don't want to write the same thing all over again, although I could have written, I think, a better script than they came up with. But apparently up to now they haven't raised the money, and I don't know any details about the picture coming out. But I do wish them luck. Why not?
I know that you've done a lot of work adapting Ed McBain's books, the 87th Precinct books. Have you ever thought about or written any fiction on your own as far as paperbacks?
No, never. No. There have been some paperbacks made of It's Alive and God Told Me To, but they were never written by me.
Your version of I, the Jury, I really enjoy, and I'm curious, what was it like adapting Mickey Spillane?
Well, I never met Mickey Spillane. I had read in a journal that I, the Jury was the highest grossing and the biggest bestseller of any private detective or detective novel of any kind. So I wondered, why did they make such an awful movie out of it many years ago in 3D, which is what happened to it. And then that was followed by a bunch of really substandard movies about the character of Mike Hammer, except for the one that Robert Aldrich did with Ralph Meeker. And it's considered to be a pretty good movie, but all the others were just bad. And then I read an article by Bosley Crowther with a review of the movie James Bond, Dr. No, the first Dr. No film. And he reviewed it in the New York Times. And he said the character of that Sean Connery plays, Agent 007, owes a lot to Mickey Spillane's Mike Hammer. So I said, well, there you are. If they had made the Mike Hammer films in a quality way and spent some decent money and gotten some decent casting, they could have had a big series like James Bond. So I went out and optioned the Jury and wrote a screenplay and put it on the market, and we made a deal with this company, American Cinema, that really had no decent credits, but they wanted to make I didn't stop them. And finally, I was supposed to direct the film, but once I got involved with them, they were interested to the degree that I worked on the thing for about a week, and when I kept interfering all the time, so I decided I just don't want to do it. I'll do something else myself. So basically, I left and started shooting Q the next day. We were actually in production the day after I left out of the Jury. We were working out of the same hotel in New York as the I, the Jury people. They'd see me every morning with a different bunch of actors and crew members. They couldn't believe I was shooting another movie. We finished way ahead of them and on budget. They went way over budget. The company filed bankruptcy. And finally, 6 months later or so, both movies opened in New York on the same day, oddly enough. We were at the Rivoli, and they were at a theater down the National, down the block, about 2 blocks away. And their picture cost 7 times as much as Q, and Q did 4 times as much business. So it was a total vindication. And I don't think I, the Jury is a bad picture. It's based on the script that I wrote, pretty much. You know, I liked Ahmad Hassani was a pretty decent character as Mike Hammer, and Laurie Landon was excellent as his sidekick. So it had some good points to it, and a lot of people like that film.
Yeah, I'm just reading Kiss Me Deadly right now, and so Mickey Spillane's been on my mind a lot lately, so I want to go back and revisit that one. It's been a few years since I've seen I, the Jury. Most
of the James Bond movies were very poorly made, and it's a shame. In those days, back in that period, if you made sequels, the sequel was always supposed to cost half of what the previous picture cost, and then the next sequel even cheaper. Today, however, when they make sequels, they spend more money on the sequel, and then more money on the second sequel, and it pays off at the box office. So, cutting corners is not the best way to go. But the original Eye of the Jury, which was made in 3D, was not a very good movie at all. So, we had nothing to beat. We couldn't do worse than they did.
When you're not writing, what else are you working on these days?
Well, we got a musical for Broadway that I'm working on, written by the Sherman Brothers, who wrote Mary Poppins and Chitty Chitty Bang Bang and Jungle Book. And this is we're going to have a production of it out here in around Thanksgiving for 10 days, and hopefully get it into one of the regional theaters and eventually go to Broadway. So that's something that's fun to do, because I've never done a musical before. And so that's one project. And then I got a project with a Bad Robot Company for a series of thrillers with cable, with J.J. Abrams as executive producer. I've written all the script for the whole first season, and we're just putting it together now. I'm hoping that we get it on the air, and it'll certainly keep me busy. Although I've already written all the episodes, I'm working on the second season. So I'm keeping. That's the fate of television today and movies today. Is that cable has come in and has really taken over as the premier entertainment entity, no matter how you look at it. And the shows on cable are better than the movies that are put in the theaters. The theater movies are very big, spectacular, full of explosions and car chases, but not much content. The really interesting stuff is being done at Netflix, Showtime. So that's what we're doing.
Well, you've stuck around long enough that now things have gone back to television.
Well, that's true. It's certainly in a much bigger way than we ever envisioned at the time we were doing television in these little studios in the RCA building. I mean, today the studios we shot our shows in are used mainly for news broadcasts. They're too small for any large-scale production. But in those days, everything was done out of these little studios with some very, very good directors and some very fine writers. So, and great actors too. So that's the period. But if you look at the shows, I mean, that were done then, they're deficient in many ways also. But, I was pleased to work in that period at least for a couple of years. And I certainly have never achieved anything quite like it. It was a great deal of fun because of your association with the director and the writers and the cast, that you really felt you were part of a team.
Mr. Cohen, thank you so much for your time today. This has been a real pleasure.
Well, I'm glad you called, and I'm glad you've seen so many of my movies. Most of them are available on Netflix. You just say my name, and then my picture comes up, and then an arrow, and you can look at this 14 of the movies, I think, on there, and you can order any of them, one of them instantly. So I hope you tell your readers that, because they don't have to wait for a revival house or to go out and seek the movies. These are right there for them in their own home. All they got to do is punch the button, pay a few bucks, and they get to see the movie. It's wonderful for me because it makes my films available to people. That's really what you want in the long run, is for people to be watching your films. All right, well, thanks for the call, and I hope I run into you sometime.
Speaking of the 70s, we also talk about Night Gallery. We have a show called Midnight Viewing, which is all about Night Gallery and soon to be some other anthology shows. Scary stuff. So nothing as frightening as a overcooked bottle of wine, but still pretty scary stuff. So Until
we should start a winery and have a wine called Liquid Filth. I just, if we ever have an opportunity to make a bottle of wine, we should just call it Liquid Filth, and it has Donald Pleasence on the wine label looking at it like that. Yeah. Liquid Filth.
I want to thank John Walker for our opening theme. I want to thank Colin Gallagher for our closing theme. And I want to thank everybody for listening. Thank you so much for checking out The Shabby Detective, yet another Columbo podcast. We'll be back next month with another episode. Until then, be sure to rate and review the show wherever you get it. We would greatly appreciate it.
Are you a film fan who loves the ultimate home video experience? Look no further than The Disconnected. Your host, Ryan Verrill, is your go-to source for the latest and most accurate information on home video releases, exclusive interviews with industry insiders and filmmakers, and has established a thriving community where every film and physical media enthusiast feels welcome. From hidden gems to blockbuster hits, The Disconnected brings you insider knowledge and a welcoming space to share your love of cinema. Watch every Thursday night at 9:30 Eastern, 6:30 Pacific for the live announcements show and follow The Disconnected on social media to stay updated. Subscribe to The Disconnected on YouTube or on the podcast provider of your choice and dive into a world where every movie night is an adventure.
Do you love movies? So do I. What's up, y'all? It's KB, and I love movies. Inviting you to listen to The Conversation, a film podcast where passion meets perspective and opinion. From the old school to the new, I invite a guest on to discuss the movies that thrill us, challenge us, break our hearts, or even blow our minds. There's always new episodes dropping wherever you get your podcasts. So join the conversation. We don't just watch movies. We love talking about them too. The Conversation with KB Loves Movies, a part of Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.